This is the Powered AF Podcast, a show about visionaries, high performers, and entrepreneurs, and their stories on how they push past fear, overcome imposter syndrome, and navigate through the mental roadblocks in order to achieve the highest level of success. And I'm your host, Abu Fofana. Hey, what's going on? What's up? So I thought I'd jump on here because a million people have been asking me, hey, what are your thoughts on Threads? And obviously this is a great question. You know, Threads dropped a few days ago. Everybody's been giving their thoughts on Threads. So I thought, why don't I give my thoughts on Threads? And so if you're just joining me, what I'm going to be talking about is Instagram or Meta or Facebook's new feature called Threads. And there's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons of it, but currently I'm enjoying Threads. But I am very critical of every platform that comes out, and I give my point of view from a marketer's point of view, right? So if you all are familiar with Twitter, Twitter has been a platform that was started years ago, and one of the early founders was Jack Dorsey, right? So Twitter became really popular over time. Twitter gets referenced a lot in the news. Twitter essentially, for me, is my news source. That's where I go to get my news. That's where many people go to get their news. They break news all the time. You could be watching CNN and they'll talk about, hey, this president tweeted out, etc. This athlete tweeted out, etc. So Twitter became a verb, right, to tweet, sort of like to Google. I'm going to Google that, right? I'm going to tweet that. So Twitter became a verb, and that's how it became a household name, right? So Twitter became really popular. Then, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, walks in Elon Musk. And Elon says, you know what, I am going to buy Twitter. And he puts down $44 billion. That's what it be, not an M. $44 billion to buy Twitter. And so he buys Twitter. Now, Elon comes with a lot of baggage, right? Elon is the poster boy, right? He is, you know, up there with Steve Jobs when it comes to innovation. You got Tesla. I think 5 of his top companies are valued at over $1 billion, right? He has Tesla, he has Starlink, he has the spaceships. He just has so many different companies that value over $1 billion. So granted, in the eye of the media, he is someone that is, you know, PayPal. There's just so many companies. I could go on and on. He was one of the funders of OpenAI, which became ChatGPT. And so he has this persona that he is, you know, this really, really smart guy, right? Let's just put it that way. But over the past few years, he's becoming really, really public and sharing his thoughts and coming after people on his social platforms. It's kind of really reminiscent of, you know, Donald Trump. And so if he doesn't like something, he'll come for you. And so that's how a lot of social media has become now. It's not just the celebrities, it's not just the business owners and CEOs doing this, it's even everyday people. As soon as you hear your name in something, you get on social media, you know, you got your Twitter fingers, and you just go at people, right? Social media has really became a platform of people dueling one another. So as you get breaking information and news, you also have people dueling against one another on these social platforms. And so that's essentially where we're at right now. So Elon's been running Twitter. Now, a lot of the media don't like Elon for a plethora of different reasons. You know, he also has a lot of things that he's done that's questionable. And the reason why I'm bringing so much of, you know, the CEOs into the mix of, and I'm going to talk about Threads shortly, is because it's really important to understand position. I've seen a lot of people talk about Threads functionality, and I'll get to that in a second because it's really not about functionality right now, why Threads is becoming so popular. It has nothing to do with functionality. The way Threads is going to go, it's going to become Twitter eventually. And you're going to start seeing advertisements on it. Like what you're seeing right now is very the infancy of Threads. It's like a baby. When you first get a newborn baby, you just love that baby, right? And then there's things as the baby grows that they start doing. You still love the baby, but you may not love everything that comes with it. And so this is the same thing that's happening. It's a very new product. So everyone is really excited about Threads, which you should be, because they did an amazing rollout of the product. And I believe in the first 5 days, it got 100 million users. Now, how many of those users were new, meaning they didn't have Instagram before, they didn't have Facebook before, they didn't have WhatsApp, any of the Meta ecosystem? Like, we don't know that, right? Because Facebook or Meta has 3 billion users. Now, if 100 million of those 3 billion users got on the platform, is that impressive? Not really, right? What's 100 million divided by 3 billion? What's that conversion rate? And these are people that are already using its product, right? These are actually new acquisition of customers who don't use the product at all. And so you have to keep that in mind, right? It is impressive, but it's all relative when we're talking about the impressive scale. And so you have this new thing that comes out and people are really excited about it. But more so, people are excited because it's not a platform that Elon owns. Do you see where I'm going here? And because Elon became the villain. And every story, if you have a villain and everyone's focused on the villain, the other villains, there are other villains in the story, but the other villains could then look like heroes. And so just 2 years ago, one of the biggest villain was Zuck, right? Mark Zuckerberg, because a lot of the data privacy laws, remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal, that they were selling data for the presidential campaign, and that swayed, leading to Donald Trump winning. So there were a lot of data that they were selling to these third-party companies, and so Mark Zuckerberg became a villain. He became the biggest villain, but it only lasted overnight because there was a bigger villain that was right behind the door that was coming through. And so these platforms, what I'm noticing, people are choosing sides. It's like the All-Star game, right? You're either on Steph Curry's side or you're on LeBron James's side, right? You have to choose a side, and that's what people are doing with these platforms. It's really about the people that are running the platform. People would rather cheer on Zuck, not because they like him more, but because they'd rather see Elon lose. Does this make sense? If you remove both of these individuals from the platform, they wouldn't get the reception that they're getting right now. And so when we look at the landscape of these platforms, and it's going to get really interesting over these next few months, over these next 6 to 12 months with these platforms, with Threads now rolling out new functionalities and features. They just came out with a search feature. If you're watching this or listening to this today, they just came out with a search feature where you could search context. And so they're going to slowly start to roll out to become Twitter. Now, we've seen this story before when it comes to Meta or Facebook. They're really notorious for copying. Now, we tell business owners all the time, don't copy this person, don't try to be like this person, you're copying me, Meanwhile, one of the best companies in history, aka Facebook Meta, that's their business model. When you look at the last few companies they have, it's all about copying functionalities, all about copying features, or, hey, let's just copy whatever that company does in totality. Now, you're seeing Facebook, they do a really good job at doing it not only with small companies, but also big companies as well. They will copy anybody. They do not care. They don't care if you just started last week. And they don't care if you've been in business for the last 10 years. They're going to copy you. And they do a really good job at copying your functionality. Now, when we think about it, Facebook previously, before they started copying Twitter, where was their focus? It was on TikTok. And for some reason, no matter how many times they try to copy TikTok, they couldn't copy TikTok. That's why TikTok is still as big as it is, right? They came out with Reels. They started incentivizing Reels. They started giving away free money to use Reels, right? They started doing all these things trying to be like TikTok that they can't catch up with TikTok. So they say, you know what? Let's put our effort somewhere else. And then when you look at the history of Meta, and I know I'm getting really technical here, but you really have to understand the full picture. Name a company that they started from scratch that's been successful. I'll wait. You'll be thinking about that for a very long time. Every company that Meta has bought, right? They didn't start these companies, they bought these companies. A lot of times they end up fizzling out. Facebook is a prime example. I'm not saying people don't use Facebook. I'm just saying Facebook isn't doing what it used to do. And then you look at WhatsApp. They purchased WhatsApp. WhatsApp is people use WhatsApp, but it's not WeChat, right? So you got WhatsApp, you have WeChat. And then when you look at Instagram, Instagram founders left because they believed that they couldn't grow the company under Zuck. Like if you go listen to their stories when they exited, if you go listen to them now, they wanted to take Instagram in a completely different direction, but Zuck didn't want to take it in that direction. He wanted to turn it into a platform where you monetize, a town square. So when you look at Instagram, really, it's really a shopping center. Every 3 posts you see an ad. Every time you're on Instagram, you see an ad, right? So they monetized it. Now for the advertisers, people who advertise on these platforms like myself, it's amazing because I love collecting data and I love running ads to people and people buy my stuff. And so for the advertisers, it's amazing. So this is a challenge that these companies have. You can't just build a company based on consumers and what they like. There's 2 masters you serve when you run a company, especially that is funded and has investment dollars, is you have the customers and you have the investors. And I want y'all to pay really close attention to this because anyone that receives funding dollars, which is most of all the public companies that you shop at, any company that you shop with, a lot of times receive, funding or investing. They have to serve 2 masters. There's the customer, which they're giving you the service or the product that you want to get. But then there's also the investor who's looking for their return. Now, when you invest in a company, you're expecting a return. Whether you go and you say, you know what, I'm going to put my money with Microsoft or Apple in the stock market. As an investor, you're expecting a return on that money. And so when you look at these platforms, they're having to serve 2 masters all the time. You have to understand that they have to become a platform that advertise. You can't name me a big platform that doesn't advertise that's still in existence. It just doesn't work. When you have that many users, you open up the advertising because that's where you'll get a lot of money. Look at Apple, for example. Apple, in order to put an app on the App Store, anytime that app gets purchased, Apple takes 30% of the cut just from the app. Anytime there's an in-purchase app, Apple takes a percentage of that cut as well. So anytime you're trying to advertise on a platform, like these businesses live off of advertisement. So that's why it doesn't make sense for me, and this is a side conversation, when you're a small business owner and you think that you shouldn't advertise. Everyone's advertising. You have to understand, like in order to acquire new customers, you have to pay to play. You have to pay to get in front of new audiences. These platforms, they're not just gonna put your post in front of new audiences because they think you're a cool dude or a cool girl, right? They're gonna charge you in order to put your content in front of these individuals, especially consistently on a consistent basis. So when we look at Meta, when we look at Twitter, when we look at the birth of Threads, you have to really understand the backstory, right? So Threads right now is in its infancy. And so it's an amazing platform. If you think about Instagram and you just looked at the comments of Instagram and you remove the photos and the videos, that's essentially what Threads is. It's the comment section of Instagram. And so now people are having conversation on Threads and they're enjoying it, which they should be because it's an amazing 1.0 version of what it's going to become as it currently is right now. But it's going to change, right? It's going to change. You're going to be able to advertise on Threads shortly. Right now, people love it because they're not seeing any ads. But trust me, as someone who advertises on every platform, is in the loop of advertising, rollouts, you're going to soon be able to advertise on Threads, and you're going to see advertisements on Threads. It's just going to happen, right? This is just, if you ever watched any of the why am I blanking on it? Avengers, it's just destiny. It's just gonna happen that way. And so you're gonna be able to monetize on Threads. So my thoughts on Threads right now is Threads is it's an okay platform. I wouldn't say it's amazing. I feel like some people are overstating it because they're hate for Elon because he's running Twitter. So they're just overstating how amazing Threads is and that it's the best thing ever. It's not the best thing ever, right? It has a long way to go in order to really compete and to maybe eventually become the best thing ever. I'm not knocking it or saying that it won't reach its potential. I'm just saying there's a lot of hurdles that Twitter faced that Threads is going to face as well. And so that's just the name of the game. Yes, they got 100 million people on the Threads app over the 5 days, but when you look at platforms that have customers, there's a high churn rate. So a lot of those 100 million probably won't even stay. I would probably say half of those will probably not be active users in the span of the next month or the span of the next 2 months. right? That's just a user acquisition game, right? You only expect half of the people that actually purchase your product or are on subscription to actually be active on the platform. In fact, the stat is really about like 10 to 20% of active participants out of the people that are actually enrolling in your product, right? That's just the way it is, and that's just like the standard stat across platforms in itself. So again, my thoughts on Threads, I think it's pretty cool. I'm really interested to see how they're going to compete with not only Twitter, but again, TikTok is also a platform you should pay really close attention to, because Meta tried to compete with TikTok and they didn't do a good job. The only thing getting in TikTok's way right now, literally the only thing getting in TikTok's way, is the US government. If TikTok was a US-based company, it would literally overtake all these social platforms easily in its sleep, like easily. The only thing that's literally getting in its way is the US government. And so once the US government, and I don't know what deal TikTok's gonna make with the US government, once they get out of TikTok's way, TikTok is a really interesting platform to really watch and monitor to see what they do, because their platform, quite honestly, is probably the most flawless platform that I've seen. With the content, with the stickiness, with the, the amount of time you're on. You literally would get on TikTok and you'll spend 3 hours later and you're like, oh, what just happened? Where did the time go? And so it's a really great platform to look at it. TikTok, you could also run ads on it as well. So I'm really bullish on TikTok once the US government get out the way. I'm also bullish on Instagram, and I hope that Meta doesn't neglect Instagram, and I hope that they hire someone new to manage Instagram. And I'm not saying that the management team currently on Instagram isn't great, but they weren't better than the current founders that actually like kind of grew the platform and they had before Zuck got in the way. So those are my thoughts, early thoughts. This is part one. I'm going to do another part two, but this is part one of my early thoughts on Threads. So I'm bullish on Threads. I don't think they'll ever be like Twitter. I think they're going to be a different variation. I think they're good competitors for Twitter, so Twitter could actually, grow as well. Sometimes when you don't have any competition, you kind of stall. And so I think what Threads will do is it'll really push Twitter to be more innovative. Facebook, they're not the first entry, right? Like they're not the first to market, but they're really good at refining products. Although they lost to TikTok and trying to be like TikTok, remember, they did take on Snapchat, and they kind of, if you look at it, they kind of won in that battle, right, with Instagram stories. Remember when stories first came out, and we were all like, man, they just copied Snapchat. But stories is a really popular feature. Most people don't even know that stories was copied from Snapchat. To be quite honest with you, that's how great of a job they did in rebranding stories. So one thing Mark knows from college is building communities on social platforms. Elon is really good at building things offline, Tesla, rockets, right? If you put Mark in Elon's field, I don't think Mark would do good. Now Elon's in Mark's space. Mark still has a competitive advantage in this space. I mean, he's been doing this since he was a teenager, before he dropped out of Harvard, before he copied Facebook. No, that's not a shot. Maybe that was a little shot. But when you look at his track record and that lawsuit that he won saying he came up with the original idea, but then you see him copying all these other ideas, anyways. So I think that these platforms are going to do really well. All of them are going to do really well, especially as they introduce the advertising platform. A lot of these companies live off of the advertising revenue that they generate. So I'm really excited about that as a business owner, and I think you all should be utilizing advertisements as well in your business. It's literally you putting your content out there consistently without you having to always show up. And I think that that's what people don't understand. I remember one of my friends, I remember going on her stories one day, and she had 200 stories. She literally had 200 stories, and she was selling the same thing. So every day she would create like 200 stories. And I'm like, why are you working so hard? Why are you literally creating 200 stories when you could just run a simple ad to the people that are engaged with you on Instagram, and you don't have to wake up every day having to post 200 stories? Like, the amount of time that takes is a lot. And that's the trade-off, right? You could literally say, you know what, I'm going to take an ad. of the story, whatever my best performing story was, and I'm just gonna run this on repeat. Anybody that follows me on social media, they get an ad that says, hey, my name's Abu. If you're new here, let me tell you what I do. And this is how I could help you. So they don't even have to scroll down and go back to the beginning of January when I made my post about myself and how I help people. No, they're literally seeing my ad in real time as soon as they follow me. How many of you seen my ad before? Give me a 2 in the comment if you see an ad of mine, right? Give me a 2 in the comment. No matter what platform you go on, if you're reading an article, if you go to YouTube, if you go to TikTok, if you go to wherever, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, you'll always see an ad of mine, right? The ads that you're seeing of mine is because you're following me, you're engaged with me. You don't even have to follow me. You could just land on my page. You don't have to follow me. My ad will get after you. Now, I run different ads for people that haven't ever landed on my page before or haven't followed me before. So the ad that you see and the ad that they see are 2 completely different ads. And the people that land on my product page and are thinking about buying, they see a completely different ad than the 2 groups of people that are seeing my ads. And so what I'm doing essentially is I'm literally running an ad to different audiences that are on the journey of eventually buying from me. There are people that have been following me for a year that finally buy from me. And they're like, man, I've been following you for a year and your ad has just been after me. And I'm like, okay, that's the purpose, right? That's the purpose of ads, And then there are people that say, you know what, I saw your ad and I purchased from you and this is my first time following you. And I was like, okay, well, that's the purpose too, right? I'm trying to acquire new customers. And so I highly encourage, especially if you're a business owner, especially if you're trying to drive new leads, new acquisitions, you're trying to drive sales, is to really understand ads. No matter what platform you go on, advertisement is always going to be relevant. So you might as well take the time to learn it now. When we think about the advertising platforms, I still consider Instagram and Facebook to be number 1 when it comes to advertising. They still have the lowest cost per acquisition. And then after that, I would say it's either YouTube or TikTok, which are really good. YouTube is really great for long form, and then you have TikTok ads as well. But again, I would rank it like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and then everything else below that. You got Pinterest, Twitter, etc. And so that's how I would look at these advertising platforms as well. So again, I highly encourage you to lean into understanding ads before you hire out, because if you hire someone and you don't yourself know what to do when it comes to running ads, how are you going to evaluate if the person you hired or the agency you hired is actually doing a good job or just telling you things that you want to hear, right? So I think that's really, really important to understand. And so that's why I really encourage you all to learn ads and to run ads as well. But that's all I really got for y'all today. And I appreciate y'all tuning in. This was really great. If you have any questions for me, feel free to drop it, and I will take a few questions as well. I'll scroll up to see if there was any questions. Someone says, it's crazy how much I see you after I got the course. I appreciate that. If y'all don't know, my name's Abu. I run a marketing accelerator where I teach paid ads. I actually run the largest online marketing accelerator for business owners looking to run paid ads and marketing. And so we have a community of thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners. And it's been amazing over the last few years to, grow that community. 90% of the business owners are women-owned businesses. So that's also an amazing stat as well. And so let me know any questions for me. I'll make sure to answer it. But if not, this has been great. This has been a pleasure. And yes, our courses are beginner friendly. We literally actually just launched a whole new curriculum, and it's definitely beginner friendly. It is work, right? Beginner friendly doesn't mean without work. It is work, but it's good work. It's understandable. It's digestible. It's video based. 99% of the curriculum is all video, where we literally show you what to do step by step. So again, if you're interested in it, you could just comment PYL in a comment, and I think I have automation that'll DM you the link, or you could just go to poweryourlaunch.com. TikTok loyalty from their followers, what do you think? I don't actually agree. I think TikTok is really sticky, and so I don't agree with that statement. Yes, TikTok ads is definitely worth it to try. Facebook ads or TikTok ads. I still go with Facebook ads because, again, the cost per acquisition. But instead of doing either or, I would use both of them, right? Like, that's what I use, right? I advertise on every platform, so I'm just telling you the data that I see. I think I just posted on my stories today, over the last few months, we spent, when I say we, I mean me, $1.6 million on ads. Yeah. I looked at that report and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. I gotta start eating at home, I gotta start eating at home. But I appreciate y'all all tuning in, and I will see you all. Y'all have a great one. All right, peace. Thank you for joining us at the Powered AF podcast. Make sure to visit our website and make sure to follow our podcast anywhere you listen to the podcast to make sure you never miss a show. And please, 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 if you enjoyed this episode and this show, please make sure to leave us a review. It really, really does help. And last thing, if you're interested in this freebie that I just released, I want you to check this out. Recently, I put together a free online training on how to 10x your sales online. This is for business owners who are struggling with making consistent sales online. Whether you run a product or service-based business, this is the perfect training for you. The free training is still up, and you can access it by going to poweryourlaunch.com/pod. Again, poweryourlaunch.com/pod. That's POD. All right. Thanks again for listening in. I'll see you during our next show.